John Brown's Revolt Against Slavery by Taylor Elton and Sheila Gooch. On May 9, 1800, an American abolitionist by the name of John Brown was born. He was born in Torrington, Connecticut, to Owen Brown and Ruth Mills Brown. They were a very religious family and were strongly against slavery.
In 1805, John Brown and his family moved to Hudson, Ohio, which was also known for its anti-slavery views. 3 years later, John Brown's mother died in childbirth, and soon after, Mr. Owen Brown remarried to Sally Root.
John Brown married Diantha Lusk on June 21, 1820. They had 7 children, in which only 5 managed to live to adulthood. They were John Jr., Jason, Owen, Ruth, and Frederick. John and Diantha moved from Hudson, Ohio to Crawford County in Pennsylvania in 1826.
He followed his father's footsteps, working in the tanning business. During the birth of their 7th child, Diantha Lusk and her baby passed away. They were buried together on August 10, 1832.
John married his second wife, Mary Ann Little, on July 11, 1833. Throughout the first 21 years of their marriage, they had 13 children, but only 6 survived. Among the 6 were Watson, Salmon, Oliver, Anne, Sarah, and Ellen. During this time, they moved 10 times, and John tried many different careers, but none of them worked out for him.
They moved all about Ohio, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, and New York. Some of his jobs included being a farmer, a wool merchant, a tanner, and a land speculator. The family went through some financially rough times and even filed for bankruptcy. In the September of 1843, the family became ill with dysentery. This illness killed 4 of their children.
John Brown took part in many acts supporting anti-slavery, such as giving land to fugitive slaves, raising a black as his own, financing the publication of David Walker's Appeal and Henry Highland's Call to Rebellion speech, and participating in the Underground Railroad.
In 1849, John Brown settled down in North Elba, New York. It was a black community that had been donated land. John wanted to help them establish their farms and lives.
In 1851, he helped establish an organization that protected escaped slaves called the League of Gileadites.
Brown was not known for his anti-slavery contributions until he went to the Kansas Territory in 1855. He was the leader of the anti-slavery group of Lawrence. There they had to fight off a pro-slavery attack.
Also, pro-slavery groups were attempting to influence the election with violence by threatening Kansas to become a slave state. These 2 factors led to Bleeding Kansas.
On May 24, 1856, John Brown murdered 5 pro-slavery men with the help of Free State volunteers. The massacre happened in southeastern Kansas, along the Pottawatomie Creek. The victims of the killings were James, William, and Drury Doyle, Allen Wilkinson, and William Sherman. All 5 men were viciously murdered.
These attacks put Kansas into turmoil. John Brown and his members were never held responsible for the Pottawatomie killings. In September of 1856, Brown left Kansas and headed towards Boston after winning a battle in Osawatomie, Kansas against the pro-slavery forces. While in Boston, Brown helped support more anti-slavery groups and was introduced to other abolitionists.
John later went to Tabor, Iowa, where he planned a future attack on Harper's Ferry, Virginia. One of his followers threatened to reveal information about the attack, causing the plans to be postponed. John then went into hiding in Kansas.
Once back, Brown decides to lead slaves to Canada for freedom on a 1,000-mile journey. On July 3, 1859, John Brown and a couple of his followers resumed the plan to attack Harper's Ferry, a raid that no one but Brown believed would be successful. They observed the arsenal beforehand to prepare themselves for the outbreak.
In the meantime, before the attack, John Brown rented a farmhouse in Maryland, located near the arsenal. Finally, on October 16, 1859, John Brown and a group of 21 men raided the federal arsenal on Harper's Ferry, Virginia. Arriving at 4 a.m., their main objective was to obtain weapons to provide slaves. They captured 60 citizens in hopes that their slaves would join in on the raid, but no slaves did.
Just 36 hours into the attack, most of Brown's men had been captured or killed by local farmers, militiamen, and Marines. 10 of Brown's men were killed, 7 were captured, and 5 escaped.
Brown had been tremendously injured and taken to Charlestown, Virginia, with the other hostages. There, Brown was tried and convicted of treason. His statement to the Virginia court was, "Now, if it be deemed necessary that I should forfeit my life for the furtherance of the ends of justice, and mingle my blood further with the blood of my children, and with the blood of millions in this slave country, whose rights are disregarded by wicked, cruel, and unjust enactments, I submit. So let it be done." Brown was then sentenced to be hung on December 2, 1859, in public.
Before his hanging, he wrote a letter to his family, blaming himself for his death, and wrote, "We shall meet in heaven, where we shall not be parted by the demands of cruel and unjust monster slavery." Brown's actions influenced many people throughout the country. His involvement with anti-slavery separated the United States between the North and South. The North viewed him as a freedom fighter and matriarch, whereas the South saw him to be a murderer and a horrible man with many wrongdoings. The conflict between the North and South led up to the Civil War. Brown would be happy to know that on December 6, 1865, the 13th Amendment to the Constitution was ratified, ending slavery once and for all.